And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Mr. Lister's Quiz Shootout struck me for two reasons. One, it's based on a story of a saloon where Mr. Lister decided to keep people from fighting by having a game show, basically. And his game show involved a list of things, like top 10 lists. I do like this. But what else interested me about the game was the fact that if you see here, there's holes in the box. These holes go all the way through the game. In fact, when you look at the rules has these same holes in it. They go right through it. The game also comes with a mustache that you can put on a pencil. Doesn't really have anything to do with the game. Neither do the holes, but that's some nice decor. I thought that was a pretty cool aspect to the game. Is the game any good though, of course? Well, let's find out. The game comes with a whole pile of different cards, and there are different drinks on these cards on the backs, and your goal is to get 5 different drinks, and if you do that, you win. Now, if you get some copies of drinks that are the same, no problem. You can use any 2 drinks to make your opponents lose 1, or use any 3 drinks to get a drink of your choice. So, after a certain point, you will get 5 different drinks. Now, each round of the game, someone's going to be Mr. Lister. They're going to be the ones, you can have the same person do it the whole game. I'd recommend having one person from each team do it. I wish the rules were a little more specific on that. And so that person will ask a question. For example, here, Leonardo DiCaprio's 11 highest grossing films as of 2015. And so he'll read this question, and then each team on a piece of paper will write down as many answers as they can think of, and then they will stop at a certain point. And again, the game says a few seconds. I think Mr. Lister will just have to decide when it's done. And then you'll have the 2 teams, so let's say you have teams A and B, and A will say, okay, Titanic. And then Mr. Lister says, that's correct, so boom, they get a shot. And B says, The Wolf of Wall Street, so boom, they got one also. And then A says, The Man in the Iron Mask. Well, is that on the list? No, it's not. So that counts as one of their shots, but they don't get a point. Back to B. B says, Catch Me If You Can. They get a point. A says, Inception. They get a point. B says Shutter Island. They get a point. All right, so B wins the card. Boom, this one is their drink. Now let's say they tied, and it's very possible to tie, right? And so at that point, then they get asked the question at the bottom. The lowest grossing of these was Gangs of New York. How much did it make in dollars? And so you ask each player how much it made in dollars, and then whoever comes the closest to that answer, when they write it down, is the person who wins the card. And it's possible for there still to be a tie, but highly unlikely. So let me just show you a few of the different cards so you can see here is, according to the jingle from 1970s, there's 7 ingredients in a McDonald's Big Mac. What are the 10 most popular beers in America? There are 12 European countries with sovereign monarchies. List them. What are the 10 most populous English-speaking countries, English being their first language? There are 7 different bill denominations in a classic Monopoly game. Tell me what they are. There's 7 dwarfs in Disney's Snow White. List them. And so that's basically the kind of questions. The questions on the bottom are questions that probably nobody would know. How many episodes of As the World Turns were broadcast on TV? I doubt anyone knows that. And that's essentially the way the game goes. You're just going to play until someone gets 5 different drinks. And at that point, that team is the winner. I was actually very pleasantly surprised with this party game. It does 2 things that I like a lot. It has people make lists, and these lists are not that difficult. If I ask you what the 12 most popular nuts, seeds, and dried fruits are on nuts.com, you could probably come up with those. And that's the thing about this game. You can probably come up with those, but the fact is you need to come up with those before the other team does, in a sense. You're going to say one, and then the other team will say one back, and oh, that was one of the ones we have. So you need to write at least 6 things down, right? So that if the other team says one that you had on your list, and then you need to hope that all of yours are on the list, because you probably know the top one on each one. And so this game is very similar to a game, Smarty Pants from R&R Games, which is currently out of print. I might like Smarty Pants a little bit better, but this one works well too, and I really like the question at the bottom, because that's very similar to a game I really love, which is Wits and Wagers. And, in the U.S., How many people die each year falling out of bed? What do you think that number is? It's 450. What? I never knew that. So these are kind of interesting things. They're fun questions to do. The whole thing is a very fun, entertaining time as people laugh at the answers and go back and forth. And because it's team versus team, the whole thing, and I mean, I'll be able to utilize some of this stuff in the different game shows I do at conventions. So I'm glad for that. Certainly, I mean, yeah, they got me with these bullet holes in the box. That's a pretty neat idea. But the game inside is a good trivia-style game for groups of people. A lot of fun. Mr. Lister's Quiz Shootout. Dice Tower Judgment approved.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.